All right, so first up, we have National Weather Service, as always, telling us how amazing our weather is going to be this year.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if everybody likes it or not. Good evening, everybody. Todd Chambers here from the National Weather Service in Billings, and give you guys an update here on what we do for operations for everybody. What kind of flooding information you can expect from us, and then we'll go over kind of how the forecast is looking as we go through the rest of the spring and into this summer. So starting off here, looking at the forecast areas across the country, you can see the country's broken down in about 120 different weather forecast offices across the country. For Billings, we take care of South Central Montana, Southeast Montana, and then Sheridan County. And the Sheridan County part is mainly because of the way our radar works. We have a better sampling of Sheridan County than Riverton's radar does, so we get their responsibility. But basically going from central Montana all the way to the eastern state line, and then from up there in Custer County down into northern Wyoming. For our office, we have coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. So if you have a weather issue in the middle of Christmas dinner, you can give us a call and somebody will be there. We generally have at least two meteorologists on duty, and also have some electronic and computer systems experts that are here to make sure that we keep our operations going. And generally a staff of about 23 people in our office here in southern Montana. So looking at what we do for flood alerts, we have outlooks that we issue up to a week in advance. So we start talking about stuff. Sometimes we'll send things out in an email. Other times we just put it up on our front page, on our webpage. But these are the first indications that we have some hazardous weather that may develop. It's intended to kind of give you a heads up if you need a lot of lead time to get prepared for something. Once we get up to about 72 hours in advance, then we start seeing watches arrive if everything still looks like we're going to have some inclement weather. That's basically to prepare you for the possibility that this inclement weather will develop. Basically, conditions are favorable for it. Significant weather may impact a region, but we're still looking at timing and location differences. And a good example is kind of what we've got going on for early next week. We've got a big system coming up for probably starting Sunday and working in the middle of next week. And so there's still a lot of timing distance differences out that far. The storm systems are still well out into the Pacific Ocean where we don't have any real good way of measuring them outside of satellites. So there's still some uncertainty. So that's 72 hours, we start issuing watches. We get in the next 24 hours or so for flooding, we start talking about warnings. That means it's time to take action. That we're very confident that this inclement weather is going to happen and impact life and property. And so we want you to take actions to protect yourself and protect your property. And that's again coming in the next 24 hours as far as flooding goes. We also have advisories, and so if things trend down a little bit, we don't think the impacts are going to be as severe. We'll be issuing advisories, and mostly that's for just being aware. Be aware that there's going to be some heavier rain or possibly some minor flooding in a few places that's not going to be very impactful, but just to keep an eye on things. And it's always possible that we have to upgrade to a warning at a later date. So just to pay attention. Some of the flooding that we deal with these warnings, flash flooding is rapid flooding, also includes dam failures. And then we have river flooding, and that's a longer term flooding. And also for, especially around Miles City, it can include ice jam flooding that we get during the winter time. So looking at flash floods, they occur from heavy and excessive rainfall downstream in areas that may experience little or no rainfall. So again, it can, especially when we get into our foothills areas, we can have heavy rain in the mountains that doesn't necessarily make it down into the lower elevations, but can still cause flooding downstream. Key elements to produce flash flooding: rainfall intensity, the duration. We get slow moving storms that sit over one area for a long period of time can result in flash flooding. Topography, so how steep is the terrain, or is it flat and doesn't drain anywhere? So poor drainage can cause flash flooding issues as well. Soil conditions, so do we have dry soil, or is the soil saturated? Do we have sandy soil or clay soil? And do we have ground cover? So we have a lot of concrete, such as here in Billings, that can cause some issues. All those things are taken into account when we start dealing with flash flooding. Looking at river floods, these occur from extended periods of moderate to heavy rainfall. We have a lot of flooding that occurs during the springtime because we get these large systems that last for 3 days, and we can get 3 to 7 inches of rain over those several days, and the soil up here just can't handle that. We're looking at areas that generally see 12 to 14 inches of rain in an entire year. And if you get half of that in a few days' time, you're going to end up with overland and river flooding. But it does tend to be more gradual. It's not a flash flooding thing. The waters rise fairly gradual in a somewhat predictable manner. And so that's why we can give those warnings out a little bit longer lead time than we do with flash flood warnings. Spring snowmelt, we've seen the Tongue and Yellowstone River valleys over time have various flooding events that have come from snowmelt in the Bighorns and the Beartooth Mountains. This year, thankfully, we're not going to have that problem. The problem might be a little different, where we're dealing with a lack of water when we get toward the summer months. So I'll give you a briefing on that here in just a few minutes. You can monitor these river observations and forecasts from our website. We've actually just got a brand new website for our hydrology focus. It's called the National Water Prediction Service page. And you can access that from our rivers and streams and lakes page or links on our homepage. You just go to water.noaa.gov to get there. And this image here is taken from that page and kind of shows a little bit different way to display some of the information on there. There's a lot of links, a lot of information that's readily available, and it's a really nice upgrade to our webpage right now, and it provides you a lot of information really quickly. We have observations provided by the USGS for most of our places, or most of our river gauges. We have some that are now provided by the state of Montana and the state of Wyoming as well, we get feeds from. So all that information is on there, and then our forecasts come from the Missouri Basin River Forecast Center down in Kansas City, and they monitor all the water that flows through the Missouri River Basin and down into the lower Mississippi. We also have historical information for each of those gauges. So you can see here in the lower right that we have recent crests and historic crests for all of our stream gauges. So if you're wondering where does this year compare to, say, 2022, we had all the water in the Yellowstone, you can take a look there and find that information. We also have short range uncertainty forecasts. These are brand new. And the Hydrologic Ensemble Forecast Service, HEFS, gives you a range. Instead of just giving you a single line forecast and say, here's what it's going to be, we're starting to give you the uncertainty by running ensembles of how the river is going to react and giving you that range of uncertainty here in the various colors. And then also telling you, what your chances of flooding are in this given time frame. So this is a really cool new tool that we'll be working with over this year and into next year as we bring it up to speed on all of our forecast points. And this information is available on our new water page. We also have long range forecasts. So if you're wondering how much water is going to flow through a forecast point during the season, or if you're worried at what the probabilities of getting to flood stage are, that information is also available on this webpage. So this is what we don't want to see when we talk about flooding. Make sure you don't go around barricades. That's the #1 reason why we have flood deaths in vehicles. It's because people don't heed the caution right in front of their eyes, and they can go ahead and drive through stuff. So that's not what we want to see happen with our folks in our area. When we issue warnings and the first responders put out barricades, make sure we heed those barricades and stay out of that water till it's receded. A couple of heavy rainfall events. April 24th in Miles City was an all-time daily record rainfall of 2.91 inches. The old record was back in 1964 at 2.7 inches. We had significant ponding of water. You can see the underpass there at the interstate is flooded, and it's also got a lot of floating hail on it. So again, our spring storms don't tend to come with just rain; they tend to come with a lot of hail too. That can clog up drainages and make for a worse flooding event than would be if we just had precipitation. This is the Colorado Front Range west of Fort Collins. Back in 2013, you can see the damage that persistent thunderstorm anchored on higher terrain, that steep terrain there, going into Rocky Mountain National Park, and it was $2.3 billion in damage. There were 8 fatalities, and you can see the damage to infrastructure there with the train tracks are hanging in the air above the stream. So water can do a lot of damage, especially when it's going downhill. So that's why it's important to heed those warnings and make sure, especially at night. We have a lot of heavy rain events that happen in the nighttime hours in the spring, and it can catch you if you're not paying attention. Going through some of these lower areas, low-lying areas, especially on the rural roads. And here's kind of an example of that. During the day, we have slow-moving thunderstorm, 3 to 5 inches of rainfall in an hour. And this was in the Shepherd area in Yellowstone County in 2015. You can see the water flowing over the road there. These rural roads will get eroded, and you'll end up with holes in them, or you'll end up with the culverts being washed out from under them. So then when you drive your vehicle over it, the culvert, where the culvert was, collapses, and you end up in the water. So you got to be real careful on these rural roads, especially with the muddy water. And then you can see the amount of hail that was stacked up in the lower right there. That's all piles of hail the water left after it receded. So again, we don't just end up with flash flooding and rain most of the time. We end up with hail as well. All right, so how do you stay informed on what's going on? www.weather.gov is the homepage for the National Weather Service. If you click on the map that pops up for South Central Montana, it'll take you to your local Weather Service page wherever you are in the country. And for us, there's a sample of our homepage and what it looks like. So on our front page, we'll have displays of hazardous weather in our weather story. If there's anything coming up, it could be something, again, as late as 7 to 10 days out, or it could be something in the near term. We can have sometimes up to 5 or 6 stories going at one time discussing active periods of weather. But that's a good place to get your first look at what's going on. If you look just below it, you see a map with a bunch of color shades in there. Any watches, warnings, advisories that we have out will be displayed on that. And you can click on that map and it'll take you to the forecast along with the associated hazard that we have posted. If you've got a smartphone, the wireless emergency alert system is a great thing to have turned on. It gets you emergency messages sent by authorized government alerting authorities. So this isn't stuff that's just going to spam your phone. Right now, we got alerts for severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, and flash flood warnings, Amber alerts, and any kind of other presidential alert. Those will automatically go to your phone and alert you. I know most people have probably heard the Amber alerts when it comes up, but if a tornado warning or flash flood warning or even a stronger severe thunderstorm warning where we think that there's a serious threat, this will ring on your phone anywhere you're at, and it's based on where you're located via the cell phone towers in the vicinity of the warning. So even if you've got it turned on and you go down to Florida or you go somewhere else in the United States, this warning will alert you in your local area wherever your phone is at. So it's a really good thing to have up and running, and you can look at more information at ready.gov/alerts to figure out how to set your phone up or make sure that it's set up to receive these emergency messages. If you want a mobile app, unfortunately, the Weather Service doesn't do mobile apps. We rely on our partners to do that. And so a good place to go is Red Cross. And they have an emergency app there, and look at redcross.org/prepare/mobile apps to download that to your phone. And that's a good application there for finding out what's going on as far as the mobile app goes. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. So if you want to get out and comment with us or interact with us, we're active on Twitter or X as we're doing it now. So please feel free to jump on there with us, and we love to get reports from everybody, in addition to sending out information that elaborates on whatever highlights and whatever weather's going on at the time. Okay, so again, we don't want anybody driving through water. It doesn't take much water to lift a car up. It doesn't, you know, some folks are driving F-350s and dually pickups. It doesn't take a lot of water to lift those either. So we want to make sure that, you know, the big message, turn around, don't drown. That's the Weather Service's message to everybody. And if you encounter water that's too deep to see through, especially, don't drive through it. It's better if water is flowing over roads and you've got sea ripples and all that. Just go a different direction, or take the time to let it recede before you go that way. Too many people drown in their cars, and we don't want to see that. So turn around, don't drown is the Weather Service's response to flooding and driving. All right, so let's look a little bit at the forecast for the next little bit, and actually looking back to start with here at the last year of temperatures. So how have we done? Last year was actually above normal on temperatures. A lot of this came from last year. I mean, it was a really wet year in a lot of the forecast area last year, and really the warmth wasn't during the daytime, because we did have clouds and precip. It was during the nighttime. So the clouds and the precip that we had overnight, and the fog from the heavier rain we got, especially in June and July, really held the overnight temperatures up. So we were probably about 4 or 5 degrees above average in the overnight, and that's what resulted in our average temperatures being warmer than normal for the last year. Looking at our last 6 months of precipitation, you can see a lot of red. So the last 6 months have been pretty dry, going back to basically the start of November, especially over southeast Montana. You can see there through Custer County, some of the darker red colors indicating that we're, you know, 25 to 50% of normal precipitation has fallen during that period of time. So we just have some short-term, at least maybe in the midterm, drought going on over portions of the area, and that's over the last 6 months or so. Looking at our current soil moisture, we did have a wet prior to that November timeframe. We did have a fairly wet September into October, and so we did have some carryover moisture lingering in our soils. And looking at the soil moisture from April 26th, anything in the blue colors is above average. Anything in the white is normal, and then you get the pockets of yellow and brown, beige, indicating areas where we have below normal soil moisture right now. So most of the area is at normal or above normal. We got some pockets here. Again, I-94 going from Miles City up toward Glendive. That area is a little bit dry, but certainly into our foothills areas and most of the rest of the area, we're not doing too terribly bad. So that's the good news, is that we have carried over some soil moisture from last year, even though the last 6 months haven't seen the precipitation we'd like to see over the Eastern Plains. Looking at the drought monitor, kind of reflects the same concept, showing a D1 type moderate drought for portions of southeast Montana, and then into our mountains. Our mountains really haven't done bad on precipitation. What they've done bad on is holding it as snow. We've had a lot of warm-up periods that have helped melt the snowpack up there. A lot of the rivers were running well above average during the holiday periods in November and December, and that was because of the snowpack that we'd built up actually melting during that time. You don't usually associate November, December as being a snow melt period up in the mountains, but it was. And we kind of lost a good deal of that, especially the October. We had a couple of big October systems that put down a lot of water in the mountains, and that water actually came out through our river systems during the early winter season. For right now, we got some parts of the area sitting in at least a D1 moderate drought situation, according to the drought monitor. Looking at what we can expect going forward, again, going into July, it's looking like we might see a little bit of improvement over southeast Montana, at least areas from Powder River County up into to the Baker area, with persistent drought down further south into north central Wyoming, and also persisting in drought back into the western mountains. So the water supply areas look like they're going to continue to be dry as we go into the summer here. Just want to give a quick look at what monthly precipitation normals would look like for Miles City, and we are into our wet period. So looking at the April, May, and June, and into July, looking well over an inch of precipitation, well over 2 inches as we go into May and June. So this is our period to pick up a good deal of precipitation. Again, those big 3-day systems that we get, including the one that possibly is going to impact us as we go into Sunday through next Wednesday, are the ones that bring us those big amounts of precip, and also, again, persistent thunderstorm activity day to day helps to drop that precipitation over areas of our plains. A quick look at the Montana Snow Survey. This was back on April 26th. Kind of give you an idea of what the snow water is up in our mountains compared to average. Look at the Missouri headwaters, which go north of us here, about 70%. Yellowstone Basin, looking at about 66% of normal snow water. And a lot of that's because our southern mountains, down around Cook City, into the areas that have the huge trees, and normally get 30, 40 inches of water, only have about 20 to 25 inches of water right now. So they really didn't get the big walloping of precipitation that we normally expect down there. And then again, a lot of it also melted. Looking into the Bighorns, about 86% of normal, so doing a little bit better in the Bighorn Basin. So water coming out of Yellowtail Dam, they're actually releasing about 6,000 CFS right now. So they're trying to clear some space because they do think they'll have a decent water year. The Tongue and the Powder River are both lagging behind, 73% on the Tongue and 66% on the Powder River. And at this point, just about all the snow in the Bighorns below about 7,500 feet has melted out. So we're talking about only the highest mountains peaks there in the Bighorn Range that still have a significant snow water left to come out. But overall, below average. And we're not seeing, again, we're looking at the drought monitor, we're not expecting a whole lot of improvement as we go into July. Here's a look at a CPC, or Climate Prediction Center for NOAA's outlooks. Looking at left side for temperatures. Most of the eastern part of Montana is in white, which would be equal chances. It just means that there's not really a good signal to say it's going to go one way or the other. So right now you prepare for basically normal conditions, and the same thing for seasonal precipitation. If you go out toward western Montana into central Montana, you're looking at a lean toward warmer than normal temperatures, and still looks pretty seasonal as far as precipitation chances go, going through again into the July period. Spring flood risks, there's less than a 25% chance of minor flooding across the area right now. And again, that's based on the fact that we're really behind on snow water. So we just don't have the snow in the mountains to really get those river levels running high. And again, in our area, we really need to have the rain on top of already high rivers to cause flooding, river flooding across our area. And so those conditions just don't look like they're going to come together for us for this season. So that's a good thing. Lack of flooding is not a bad thing. Looking at the seasonal flood outlook for the Tongue River here at Miles City, kind of give you an idea of we're going to peak somewhere in the first week of June, and really looking at toward this green to light blue color as far as where we're probably going to peak on the Tongue River. And so somewhere around 4 feet and 4.5 feet is what looks likely to be the peak. And then looking at the 10th percentile, so the 10% chance of getting up to say 9 feet, but that still puts us a foot below minor flood stage. So currently less than 10% chance of reaching flood stage for the Tongue at Miles City. Looking at the Yellowstone River, looking at about 7.5, 8 feet for a peak on average, and then 10% chance of getting up around 10 feet. And flood stage for this point would be about 14 feet. So again, less than a 10% chance on the Yellowstone as well of reaching flood stage this year, given seasonal conditions moving forward into the summer. So here's the seasonal flood threats summarized. Looking at during the snowmelt season, and again, we also have to have that water already in the rivers, and we're just not seeing that. Snowpack alone is not enough to produce flooding, and we're not going to have anywhere close to that kind of snowpack available to do that anyway. So flooding chances 10% or less on the rivers around Miles City. Current conditions and runoff forecasts are not hinting at any issues. going forward, again, near normal on temperature and precipitation for the next few months. Um, and low river levels are possible this summer. I mean, I think that's the bigger message right now is that we've got some soil moisture in for at least the start of the irrigation season. So I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of calls for water early because we do have that moisture sitting in there from last fall. But as we get into July and August, that lack of snowpack, all that water that flowed out during November and December is the water that should have flowed out in July and August, and it's not there now. So I think we're going to have an issue with low water on river levels going into this summer. So just start thinking about that for planning purposes. That normal flows may not be there for the summer period. Anybody that wants to volunteer to help us out with observations, we got a Cocoa Roz program. These folks, basically, you can see the dots around our area, go out and measure rain and snow for us. And if you're interested in that, you can go to the website there at cocoroz.org, or you can give us a holler here and we'll point you in the right direction to do that. We always need more observers. A lot of our observers that have been doing this for decades are getting older now, and we need to have some replacements to fill in the blanks. So we encourage you to join this program if you want to help us out. And that's all I have. If you got any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. If you need to get in touch with us, nws.billings@noaa.gov for an email, or give us a call. We're here, 24 hours a day. So 406-652-0851, and we'll answer your questions for you. That's all I got.
Any questions? All right, Todd. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Have a great evening.